Alright, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully the angle here isn't weird due to the fact that I just cannot get a good adhesive for my other helmet. I'm using my old helmet. Number two, having a bit of a tonsil problem, a tonsil stone. I don't know if the tonsil stone is still there or my tonsil is slightly swollen covering the stone, but regardless, it's getting better. But hopefully all this talking won't make it hurt again, because it's, again, getting better. But anyways.
And I also want to let y'all know that voiceover Molly is here in case I'm forgetting anything or I want to properly re-explain some things that I was trying to explain in the video. I just wasn't able to get my words out. And that's where I'll immediately interrupt the e-bike Molly to let y'all know and properly tell y'all a quick run through of the last video in case anybody didn't see it. So last video, I told y'all how for the longest, and I've been hearing they're saying it in those previous videos, but for the longest, I've been having this error, phase current overflow. So again, the last video I explained how no matter what settings I touched, whether that be the battery amps, whether that be the phase amps, whether that be the percentages and all the RPMs for, I think, the field weakening, turning field weakening on, off, even messing with the PID parameters, no matter what I do, no matter what setting I change, I cannot get rid of this phase current overflow. Let me remind you again, it's literally the only error I keep getting. So once I realized a simple setting change is not going to fix or get rid of the error, I had to then think and ask the question, could it be something else affecting this controller or anything else and causing an error? Now, I don't mean to crap on anybody's suggestions, but I had to debunk a few theories just so we can get those out the way and not have to worry about those anymore. The first theory being, is it possibly the battery? Is the battery cutting it off? Am I pushing too much power for the battery? No. Now, way before I ever made a video on this situation, I've been checking my BMS because I heard someone say this to someone else. I checked my BMS to make sure, you know what, maybe I am pushing too much for the battery or the BMS, more likely the BMS. BMS never showed a single error, never showed a over discharge or nothing. So that alone already told me it was never the battery, and even if it was the battery and it was doing so much that the battery would shut down, the whole bike would shut off. That doesn't ever happen. So the next theory that was asked, maybe I'm pushing too much voltage for the controller. It's a 28 series battery on a 96 volt controller. I probably should be using the 108 volt far driver controller. It's not that either. I've seen many people in the Facebook pages that I'm on use 28 series on the far driver 96 volt controllers. So if I'm the only one that can't push 28 series on a 96 volt far driver controller, then that would lead to what I'm about to get into later in this video of something needs to be replaced. Because I shouldn't be the only one having that problem. And I think the last one that I heard, and I feel like someone might have said this to me. I can't remember if it was someone else, but I know someone said this a few times to other people in these Facebook pages, probably doing too much for the motor. I understand if you're going by QS's ratings of the motors. The problem is, if you know enough about QS motors, you would know that these motors are, for some reason, don't know why, but for some reason, very underrated. So the QS 180 specifically, which is the motor that I have, very big motor, can push way more than 11,000 watts. Let me remind you guys that this phase current overflow, not only is it the only error that I'm having, but it happens to no matter what gear. So it's not even a using too much power problem. It'll even happen in gear 1, which is cut off at 400 phase amps and 11,000 watts. That's it. I've seen someone push 70 kilowatts with the QS 180, and that still wouldn't make sense to cut off at 11,000 watts, seeing that QS raced their motor at 8,000 continuous, 20,000 peak. Yet again, I cut out at 11,000 peak. Doesn't make sense. So I don't think I'm forgetting anything. I think those were all the main theories that I kept hearing. And now that those are debunked and out the way, let's get back on the road so I can tell y'all about the updates and some of the new testing that I've been attempting to do.
So now that we got that stuff out the way, I don't think I'm forgetting anything, because of course, I always seem to forget what I'm trying to say when I'm out here talking. But hopefully I'm not forgetting nothing. No, it's not any of those issues. So again, testing settings, checking the batteries, not the battery. I'm now down to just figuring out. I have no hope that this is an error I can fix and not have to spend money on a new motor or controller. But now I'm at that point where, okay, I'm trying to diagnose, is it the controller or is it the motor? So that's what today's video is about. So where am I at right now and what's going on with that? Well, I'm confused. I'm confused as fuck. It's been a while since I've been on this road. I didn't realize how finished this road is. It's nice and wide open, not narrowing down, at least not yet. It might narrow down soon. But anyways, well, I'm confused. Why am I confused? Well, first, before we do too much driving and too much extra talking, let's get to all the tests I did off camera that I decided to do all in one take. Well, kind of one take on camera. And that was me trying to figure out, is there an unbalance in the phase wires because of the controller or because of the motor? Let's check that out.
So right here, I was attempting to do my own form of testing the voltage, which I properly don't know how to do. I don't know if you're supposed to take the multimeter and put like the positive on the battery positive and then put one on the phase terminals or what. I was a little scared to test that. Don't want to cause any possible sparks. So I kind of just put the wires to the phase wires and testing some form of voltages. I'm probably not going to show all of this because, again, I don't even know if I did it right. So what I'm pretty much going to do here, you can see it down here. So I'm going to touch this onto the phase wires. And it's going random when I do a lot of movement, so I try to stay stable. But when I do touch these, it shows some form of voltages in millivolts. So 2. That went up to 3, got as low as 1.5. Blue was a little quicker, but still stuck down a little lower now. And then, no, that was green. Now this is blue. So they all sit at 1.5 and then they drop. If I do, I don't know, positive, see if it shows any different numbers. Okay. We'll still try to chill around 1.5. So you're all doing similar things. Again, this is more likely not the right way to do it, but after we get that random weird testing out the way, because again, I probably did that completely incorrect, I do the main test that I wanted to do and that I came out here for, and I was testing, is each phase wire pushing the same amount of amps? Now my thought here is, if I'm correct, I could have swore that these phase wires are supposed to be pushing the equal amount of current. I know, and I keep hearing that they're supposed to be pushing the equal amount of voltage. But again, I think that runs the same for the current. And if they're off, they're going to be off ever so slightly, but not by too much. And it seems like these wires are off by quite a bit. So this test, you may be wondering, why am I not just simply driving this up and down the street, slamming it in gear while having the multimeter calculate how much amps? Because the amps don't stay, obviously, and I would need to use the max and minimum function that doesn't seem to work, or I just don't know how to use it. Therefore, I can't see the max amps that were drawn. So I really wanted to do it that way, but again, it's not going to work. So I had to put it on the wall, and I can't just slam it on the wall because obviously I don't want it to burn out. But if I give it enough throttle to push some amps, the problem is I may be giving it a little less or a little more throttle than the last wire. So the best way I can do this accurately is by lightly hitting the throttle as much as possible until I hear the motor whine and just see which wire is doing the highest amount of amps. So let's chill in at 4. Let's do it again. 6. I'm going to give it more throttle. Oh, that's real light. We're at 1. Okay. Because the problem is, again, if I just press the throttle, I might be giving one wire more throttle than the other. So that got up to 4. I feel like I'm hitting this fairly light for it to go to 4. Try it again. So hitting this really light is still a little more than the blue. Okay, I'm barely hitting it, and that shut up pretty fast. Yeah, see, the yellow's doing a lot more numbers. I'm hitting this real light just like these two. This only got that to 1 as light as I was hitting it. This did 2. This is doing 6. Yeah, so this is shooting up. So yellow seems to be pushing the most, but I have them all at their colors. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get whatever it's called, the electric ratchet, and I'm going to switch these wires again. I'm going to switch all these to a different color combination that I had that I don't know if I talked about, but if I didn't, I'm going to talk about it now. Alright, so as you can see, wires are now switched. So someone recommended this way of doing the pattern of wires in case you're trying to do the testing that I'm doing. I almost dropped my phone. We're hooked up now, so let's see what the numbers are now saying. Trying blue first. We'll do the same thing. Hopefully we get no Hall errors. If we do, I'm gonna have to try a different wire combination. Hitting this real lightly. Blue still only getting up to 1. Yeah, 1.3. That's all we're getting. So you know what? Let's go green. Now green was getting up to like 2. 2.8, I think it was. It's getting 1.7 now though. There we go, yellow. Oh, wait, you know what? I'm not in the 0 function. That might be reading current differently. Oh, it's shooting up to 3. Try to go a little lighter. Now it's sitting at 1. Okay, hold on. Okay, so now I'm actually in the 0 function. Let's do this again. Hitting it real lightly. 1.8, that's it. Okay, that's sticking to 1.8, so that's number is consistent. Now green again. Wait, I'm messing up. 1.2. Green is hooked up to blue, so now green seems to be the lowest at 1.2. 1.3. Consistently getting 1.3 now. That's twice in a row. Let's see what yellow's doing. So far blue's the highest. Let's see what yellow. Hitting this real light. This isn't even hitting 1. But yellow's hooked up to green, so this is what I mean. It's showing odd numbers again. Yellow should be in between. It shouldn't be the lowest. Now, blue is still the highest, being hooked up to yellow. So you could try to say that's still the controller. It's just that you wouldn't think yellow would now be the lowest. Alright, so I thought I'd go for one more test. So this wire setup right here is the wire setup I did on my own. Or just, you know, I tried on my own, switching wires. This wire setup for a while didn't work. It was having motor hall errors when I tried to spin it up too fast. But then one time I just changed its phase offset to like 100. And it was it didn't have any errors, but it still felt a little rough. So I'm like, you know what, let me try auto learn, and auto learn set it to 149. And it was actually able to go. Now this wire setup right here has actually lasted the longest. It had the error, of course, but it went 3 days of accelerating up and down the street 8 times each day, and then taking it around the road and trying to see if it'll cut out during mid-range torque. For some reason I felt like it was the quickest with this wire setup until the 4th day it cut out on me. Also, this was at high voltage at about 114 to 113 volts. So it did the best. It did the best out of all of them, lasting at high voltage. But of course it still had the error. So you know what, I'm like, if I did the other wires with the original setup, blue the lowest, green middle, yellow the highest. The next setup, blue was the highest, green was middle, and for some reason yellow was the lowest. So let's see what this setup is doing. Gonna, of course, again, very slightly be on throttle. Peaked up to 3, quickly went back down to 1.4. Feel like I hit the throttle a little hard though. 1.5. Do it one more time to see if it's consistent. Oh, not that consistent. Consistent on 3. Maybe I hit it hard because it's now saying 1.7. One more time. Okay, this shit's all over the place. So blue is already off. Blue is also hooked up to green. So that's that. Which yellow was really low on that. So again, it's just really weird. I don't know what this inconsistency is. Green's hooked up to yellow. So far green was the highest, but I might have hit that hard. I don't think I'm hitting it that hard. Very lightly hitting it. Is at 2 and then it jumped to 5. One more time. I don't think I'm hitting this that hard. 2 seems to be the lowest it wants to go, so it's already higher than blue, jumping from 2 to 5. And green is hooked up to yellow, so that's showing another sign of yellow being a little high. Be a little surprised if it's the controller, since the way the motor sounds, but maybe the motor sounds that way because of the controller, who knows. Flat at 1. Yellow is hooked up to blue. Blue connected to blue was real consistent on that 1.3, aka being the lowest. Consistent again. Okay. So somewhere later on in this video, I'm gonna make sure to cut it out, but just in case I don't, I did say that only 2 times yellow was the highest. The rest, it wasn't. That's actually 3 times in a row that yellow has been the highest. Now, I did one more test and I was in this exact same wire configuration, but I changed the phase angle back to its working phase angle with this setup, which was 149. Let's see how that went. 1.8. So I was consistently seeing 1.7 to 1.8. I'm hitting it hard. It feels louder out here, so I'm struggling to hear the beat. There we go. Yeah, I'm struggling to hear the whine. Green's at 2, which green's hooked up to yellow. So you would think green would be the highest. 2.8, so that's pretty consistent. Wasn't before. I'm closer to the motor now, so kind of hearing it better. But yellow seems to be the highest. Look at that. I'm hitting it real light and it's hitting 4, but yellow's hooked up to blue. Now, I just want to say, I don't even know if any of these tests mean anything. I think these motors are supposed to be running the same amps between each and every wire, but I could be completely wrong. But if I'm not wrong, that's where the inconsistency is not as much as I thought, but still a little bit off. I don't know if phase angles will sway the way things work, but I expected to see the same old, even with the phase angle being different. But I don't really know enough, so again, maybe that can sway some things. But it makes me want to lean towards, is it a possibility that it still is something being wrong with the controller? Because the fact that yellow was the highest, the yellow terminal on the controller was the highest 3 times in a row, no matter what wire it was on, at the same phase angle, just seems like something's wrong. That's if my theory on these phase wires supposedly running the same phase amps is correct. Now, I don't think I said why I was even doing this, the reason I was doing this. From doing some research, the most I could find is, in order to find an unbalance in your phase amps, phase flow, whatever it is, there's going to be an unbalance of voltage within the controller, or you can find it with an unbalance of current through the wires. I don't know how to find the balance through voltage on the controller. That's why I was doing that goofy randomness I was doing earlier, which probably did nothing. So how I'm doing it is by calculating the amps that's coming through each wire. Now let's use the yellow wire and the yellow terminal, since those have been the highest. Again, the yellow is hooked up to its yellow terminal like it should be. It's running way more amps than every other terminal and wire. You start switching the wires around like I did now. If whatever wire that is hooked up to the yellow terminal starts to become the highest wire, then that means it is the controller, because the yellow terminal, aka the controller on its yellow terminal, is pushing an unbalance of voltage. Now, if the yellow wire still remained at highest on the blue terminal or the green terminal, no matter what, the yellow wire was still the highest, then it's the motor. Now, because consistently 3 times in a row, the yellow terminal on the controller, no matter what wire was hooked up to it, was the highest, is it possibly the controller? And this is exactly why I earlier said I'm confused, because one moment, I think it's the motor sounds bad, sounds like this, and now I'm back on the controller. And I don't know, with a little bit of testing I did, I researched the 3-phase motors and phase current off balance, and I don't know, I think 3-phase motors are exactly the same, right? I don't think they're any different. They run the same type of phase setup. And again, what the controller's doing is kind of matching the research that I looked up. So now I got a new pair of theories, and the first question would be, does the motor sound kind of janky and rough because the controller's supplying a bad current or bad voltage?
So now we've seen that, and I've tested all different wires. As you can see, like I said again, I'm confused. Is this completely, oh, it's open now. Because if I'm correct, it would stop here, and then I was going to turn into this neighborhood. But I think it is completely open, which I'm going to do a U-turn. Because of this error, this could cut off at any time, and I don't want to be in the middle of heavy traffic. This road's officially open. This is a nice long straight road now. Nice view too, this is beautiful. Anyways, with all that being out the way, I kind of want to lean towards, is it a possibility it's the controller again? My problem is, the controller, the motor sounds weird, and that's one of the things that made me want to think it was the motor. I'll show the clip again. That's how the motor sounds with pretty much stock settings. But my thing is, people saying it's probably a broken bearing. It could be something's wrong with the rotor and the magnets are scraping. My problem is, if that's the case, how was I able to do 96 miles per hour on this bike? And have no issues with the motor starting to like completely fuck up, or the bearing starting to like go wild. And I know it can't be the bearing because, and it possibly can't even be the rotor, because when I changed the PID settings from 4, 8, and 12 all to 1 on start KI, mid KI, and max KI, why is it all of a sudden that the motor sounds smoother, a lot smoother? That scraping noise, you don't hear that so much anymore. And that doesn't make sense to me if the motor's just off. And two, if there was something wrong with my motor windings, wouldn't I be seeing heat no matter what speed or where I go? Wouldn't I be getting a lot more or a lot worse errors? Mainly the heat is what I think would throw me off. Each and every wire combination that worked enough for me to drive like I'm doing now, I barely ever see 50. I'm definitely not going to see 50 now because it's actually nice feeling out here. Sun's down. Summer, the hottest part of summer, at least for Nevada, is kind of over. Even in the hottest weather that I was able to take this bike out though, I barely ever go past 55C. And for the windings to be bad, because doing some research again, if this shit's happening because of the motor and the windings are bad in the motor, I would be seeing a lot more heat. That's the one thing I know for a fact that I would be seeing, and I'm just not seeing it.
Just doing a little bit of simple research, you'll find that if there's anything wrong with your phase windings, you're always going to deal with some sort of heat that'll lead to failure. I've had this motor for 4 months, been constantly pushing it, purposely pushing it, at least in gear 1, but still pushing it, I guess a little bit amount of amps and phase amps. And it's never had any signs of wanting to fail. It's still rotating fine. It sounds still as smooth, at least with the PID settings on. And I still don't deal with any heat. In the many of times that I will purposely speed 70, I've only done 90 miles per hour once, which was the clip I showed for 70 miles per hour. I don't ever see a heat issue. And as you can see all from here, from phase, order, connection issues, opens, shorts, installation failure, especially installation failure. If I'm saying this dude's name correctly, if you look at this guy, Gaius Garage, he had an installation problem where for some reason they crimped these lugs onto enamel coating on the wires, and that caused his whole entire motor to completely burn out, as you can see all here. Obviously, I would have had that problem. I was looking at his build when he was doing it, and he was having those heat issues 160C really fast. I've never ever had a heat issue with my motor. I would even feel the motor with my own hands to make sure the app isn't, calculating something wrong. Motor was never that hot. And let's just say that I am having a similar problem, but it's lighter than his. Well, I've done up to 74 miles doing the range test on this bike, and it was on and off because obviously I didn't do a 74 straight drive. But on multiple occasions, I've done 25 mile and plus non-stop drives, only stopping when there's a red light, but non-stop drives, 50 to 55, probably even 60 miles per hour. You saw the last drive I did to Henderson where I peaked up to 78. We was kind of going faster in that whole drive. Never had a major heat issue, never had a heat issue at all. Motor was running at perfectly fine temperatures and anything else that you would expect to happen, especially driving a motor that's having a problem for that long, that fast, and kind of that hard. I didn't have any of these other issues. The only issue that you can say is kind of similar to what I may be dealing with, which is wiring. Using the wrong number of phases can cause the motor to be noisy. Now, if I'm reading that correctly, the wrong number of phases, isn't that the wrong number of phase wires? Like I would only be using 2? If I am reading that wrong and it's something else, regardless, my motor is noisy. But why does the noise die down through a simple setting change in the controller? So this makes me want to ask again, is my controller supplying the wrong amount of current or voltage? Is it supplying a bad signal that's causing weird noises within my motor? Is it causing itself an issue?
So again, I'm confused. I'm not 100% sure, but it's some things like that that's making me wonder. But even when I hit it, never saw major heat. This motor's never seen 60C, even during the summer, this hot ass 100 to 108 degree weather. So I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm really just trying to figure it out, because I would like to get this shit over with. It's 4 months. I obviously had to spend some money. Something's wrong with something. But I'm really struggling to figure out what the issue is now. So it's like, I'm kind of getting to the point where it seems like no matter what I do, it's a struggle to just resolve it overall, whether I can't keep what I already bought or whether I can just, I probably could go, but it took a little long, so let's not take that risk. Yeah, can I keep what I have, or do I need to change it? I'm just trying to figure it out already, because I'm trying to get back on the road. This ain't the type of content I wanted to be making for you. I had way better ideas, and I was even going to try to do it pushing through this heat. But here I am doing this because getting these dumbass errors. Because I just don't get it. Why is it when I change the PID settings all down to 1, which should give me more torque, I think, depending. I think a lot of people say those mainly work for smaller motors. But regardless, why does the motor sound so much better when I do that? So yeah, back to it again. I'm just trying to figure it out. So now to just go on to me just rambling about some extra shit. Oh man, if having to waste an extra K or more through every project is about to start becoming an ongoing theme, because $1,000 gone with the first bobber because my dumb ass allowed myself to get scammed with the battery. And now this is going to be another 1K going due to either a motor or controller problem I could have turned. They're not in my lane. So if this is going to be a reoccurring thing, that's just going to be fucking aggravating. So with the test I showed y'all, man, give me some thoughts on what y'all thinking. What more can I do? I'm also trying to really figure this out, because if I have to buy this controller, I don't have to buy it from AliExpress. Econic Cycles, I bought something from them, and I might be buying another thing from them, and that'll be the controller. But they're about to have a sale at this current moment I'm talking. They're gonna start a sale tomorrow that's gonna end it's only gonna last 2 days.
Which, as I'm editing the video, the sale has started, which is the 16th of August, and by the time this video is uploaded, which should be tomorrow on the 17th, early in the morning on a Saturday, the sale will end Sunday. And I don't know if Sunday's the last day. I think Sunday's the last day. I don't have much time, so if I have to buy a controller, I want to get it through the sale. I actually don't think I can afford it if I don't get it through the sale. So I'm really trying to figure this out quickly, because time is running short. But at the same time, I still don't want to buy a controller if that's not the problem.
So while the sale's on, I'm trying to cop some shit, trying to get some good prices. And I can't do that if I don't know what the problem is, because the last thing I'm going to do is buy the wrong thing. And they say, no, I got to waste $2,000 because I can't send what I bought that I apparently don't need back. But again, I'm at the stage where I'm really trying to figure out which item is having the problem. And I'm trying to figure out, and I'm asking the people this bullshit, and they're just kind of feel like they're ignoring my goddamn question. I'm trying to ask them, is phase current overflow an error to the motor or the controller? Is it too much phase for the controller, or is it too much phase for the motor? I'm starting to feel like there's a possibility it's too much phase for the controller, because Judy told me the phase current's too high, so go ahead and sit it down to this. Again, I don't want to lower my shit. I paid this much money to push with the controller advertised. All I know is that Judy told me the phase amps is too high. I'm not 100% sure if it was specifically meaning for the controller, but yeah, I asked Judy the question, hey, is this an error? Now I kind of went slightly off a little bit, talking about I've been dealing with this for 4 months. I can't find an error, I can't find a solution, blah blah blah. Please let me know what this error is, so I can trash whichever the problem is. And she's like, oh no, we're trying to help. I'm like, I know you're trying to help, I'm just wondering what the problem is so I can replace the item. Kind of started talking about other shit. So I went to ask again just last night or 2 days ago. The 2 check marks on WhatsApp, they saw it and just didn't say shit. I guess they're scared I'm going to replace their shit and not buy again, but that's not going to stop me from replacing the shit and not buy again. Irritatingly, that would force me to get rid of the motor and the controller, risk buying a new motor from AliExpress, and get that new controller from Econic Cycles. But with all that being said, I don't got much else to say. My tonsillitis, it's probably not tonsillitis, but my tonsil did not endure any torture during this talk, so that's good, because I want this shit to get better. So hopefully next week's video will either be me figuring out the issue, having a new item, if the new item arrives that fast, and we're back on the road with this thing, or next week's video is going to annoyingly have to force me to reveal something that I was kind of wanting to wait to do. And another annoyance too is, not only is this problem having, another project is being pushed back because of some goddamn delays. It's a small project, but it's some damn delays. Major delays. I've already been waiting like 5-6 weeks. I might have to wait another 4 weeks, dude. But with that being said, hope y'all enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I'm gonna say that one more time. Like, comment, and hit that subscribe button to become electric with the rest of the people. Get electrified with the rest of the people. Hopefully I have some good news of finally replacing one of these goddamn items so we can get back on the road with this bike. Okay, because we barely even done anything with it. Getting sick and tired of my projects having problems every time I'm done building them. But it has been, and I'm out. Peace. Imagine this video had no audio.